What happens is a continual surrender of himself as he is at the moment to something which is more valuable. The progress of an artist is a continual self-sacrifice, a continual extinction of personality. There remains to define this process of depersonalization and its relation to the sense of tradition. It is in this depersonalization that art may be said to approach the condition of science. I shall, therefore, invite you to consider, as a suggestive analogy, the action which takes place when a bit of finely filiated platinum is introduced into a chamber containing oxygen and sulfur dioxide. Honest criticism and sensitive appreciation is directed not upon the poet, but upon the poetry. If we attend to the confused cries of newspaper critics and of popular repetition that follows, we shall hear the names of poets in great numbers. I tried to point out the importance of the relation of the poem to other poems by other authors, and suggested that the conception of poetry as a living whole of all the poetry that has ever been written. Let's see which part I really want to draw attention to. It's kind of long. I'm going to just read from the beginning. No poet, no artist of any art has his complete meaning alone. His significance, blah, 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 blah. The necessity that he shall conform, that he shall cohere, is not one-sided. What happens when a new work of art is created is something that happens simultaneously to all the works of art which preceded it. The existing order, In a peculiar sense, he will be aware also that he must inevitably be judged by the standards of the past. I say judged, not amputated. I think that's so important, by them. And not judged as good or worse or better than the dead. And certainly not judged by the canons of dead critics. That's really, really interesting. There's so much in these 3 lines that I'm kind of overwhelmed. I'll read this several times. He will be aware also that he must inevitably be judged by the standards of the past. I say judged and not amputated by them. Not judged to be as good as or worse or better than the dead. And certainly not judged by the canons of dead critics. It is a judgment.
It's a new thing.
Yeah. A comparison which 2 things are measured by each other to conform. Yeah. So for me, it's these 2 paragraphs are the most important thing. I remember reading this for the first time and I was just blown away. And then, but one of the issues I think with modernism, but that obviously is also its most seductive quality, was so this guy, Ezra Pound, was sort of, the reason why I'm talking about this is just because it's something I've been thinking about for 10 years. Ezra Pound and T.S. Eliot were 2 of the most influential poets, are. So Ezra Pound, he boiled down and he reduced and sort of concentrated the essence of modernism in 3 words, and it's so simple. Make it new. Okay, that's it. Make it new. This is after he read all of Confucian texts and all this, the I Ching and all this text, and came to this. And in a way, what I love about T.S. Eliot is that he acknowledges the fact that you actually can't make anything new. That was the problem with modernism, right? Is that there was this amazing belief, this amazing inspirational belief that all art can be made new. T.S. Eliot is no, it can't. You're merely just drawing upon the traditions of the past, and if you don't make amends with your past, your personal past, and the art historical canon, you will not be able to make great art. That's the idea. Even though the rallying cry of modernism was that everything can be new. No, it can't, This is, you are only what you are and make what you can make what you do because of what preceded you. Do you understand? So there's something, and then obviously
I have for me the analogy before I read all those things. It was those I don't know the name of when you had to knit and you have this ball of line.
In what?
You have to knit like an old lady, you know, and you have this
Yarn,
the yarn, you
Yeah.
see, and I was always like that. I'm always like this, 13 years. I'm looking for the end of the yarn. You see, so I can continue it from that.
Yes, I think that's a beautiful analogy. That's super beautiful. So there's this infinitesimal quilt, right? That's been knitting since the beginning of poesis, right? Poesis, that's just Latin to create, right? Poesis is that's in art, like in Latin. In Latin, it refers to poesis and mimesis. Mimetic, meaning mimetic meaning that it mimics, and then that's one type, and then there's poesis. Poesis is to create, it's just the most essence of what creation is. That's what they're called, poets. Poets are like these, they create,
Create realities through the language.
Through language and through art. To what inspire means, right? To inspire literally means to breathe, and to expire means to breathe out. And then when you think about that as it relates to poetry, it makes so much sense. And how to inspire or rap music. Because to inspire means to take air in. And poetry, when you call a poet, their job is to breathe words. That's what they do, To take in air. To the intake of oxygen. But we use inspire in the sense that it helps you create.
And you said another thing about mimesis and poesis.
Mimesis and poesis. Poesis is like
versus
creative, to create, and to mimic, to imitate, And I love that. Someone taught me this. The meaning, like the etymology of words. So that's the thing, like to inspire. Right? I remember I took a poetry class, and the professor was like, "Oh, anyone actually know what inspire means?" They're like, "Oh yeah, you feel inspired and you want to create something." It's like, no, to inspire means literally to just breathe it, And they call them poets because to inspire makes you, when you're inspired, you want to create. So the poets are, their job, their duty is to breathe words. That's literally what. Do you see like the connection there? It's really quite beautiful. To create and to breathe words.
Okay. What else?
That's it.
That's enough.
Oh, and this is a poem. I read a lot of poetry to. So he started this movement in modernism called Imagism. That was a very short-lived movement in poetry. So Imagism basically takes things that we see, and then poets, they write all these words. Ezra Pound basically ascribes to an economy of language, to say what you see in the most little words as possible. So he wrote this poem that's really famous called "In the Station of a Metro," and he wrote this while he was in Paris, and when he saw this, and then this poem only has, I think, 2 lines. In the station of. That's it.
I see. In the station of the metro, the apparition of these faces in the crowd, petals on a wet, black boff. What boff means?
That was like a branch, like a tree branch, like a tree. Has the branches, like a branch, and it's black, and then there's colors on it. This inspires so much painting and so much work because it was so shocking and revolutionary that the title alone is sort of longer than the last line. You know what I mean? It's basically, and this is what he's trying to do. He's trying to make everything new. But the funny thing is what he didn't realize. I mean, I'm sure he realized it. He wanted to be oh, what I'm doing is so new. But this is a referential to haikus, And that's like sort of T.S. Eliot's point. And it's funny because T.S. Eliot and Ezra Pound were really good friends, and they influenced each other. And this guy was like this incredibly like he was sort of the that's they call make it new. There's 3 words that he again reduced an entire movement down to, as the rallying cry of modernism, not just for literature and poetry, but for every type of art form. But at the same time, you look at this and you realize, oh yeah, this has already been done before, you know? So it's like what you were saying about this. I have to reread this because I feel like this is the only way that sometimes, you get a little bit inundated with like all this stuff about contemporary art and postmodernism. And it's really interesting to read something that is like a huge departure from postmodernism. Huge. Like this essay is like, I think it's influenced my life, And the reason I think subconsciously for me that I study so much about what has come before me.
Traditional and individual talent. T.S. Eliot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You should get to starting your work. I'm definitely about to get my period. I'm just getting new zits here. I'm breaking out and stuff. I'm cranky.
Okay, I'll stop recording.
I don't have anything valuable to say.
So say bye-bye.
Bye.
Do you love me?
Yes, I love you.
I love you too.
I think there's a better way to say it.
Okay.